And now, America's leading expert on managing your time and getting control of your life, Julie Morgenstern.
So, do you ever feel that you're off by just a step? That no matter how well you planned out your day, and how organized you try to be, one unexpected thing happens and wham, your entire schedule is thrown off track. Maybe you're spending so much time on the have-tos, you don't have enough time for the want-tos. Have you ever spent a day in constant motion from the minute you woke up till the moment you went to sleep, and never even checked your to-do list? Does life feel out of balance? It doesn't have to be that way. When life becomes about the 1,000,001 things on your to-do list, something is wrong. It's wrong. Good time management is about identifying what's important to you and giving those activities a place in your schedule. Time management from the inside out is about designing a life that's custom fit for you, based on your goals, your style, your way. Now, good time management is not going to create a perfect life in which nothing goes wrong. Stuff happens. But good time managers have the tools to get right back on track whenever they're thrown off. And in the next hour, I'm going to give you the tools to fix that forever. 7 tools to be exact. And these tools will work for everyone. Because ultimately, it's about your life. It's about creating the balance that uniquely works for you and living life your way. I mean, it didn't used to be this hard. Life kind of sped up on us, didn't it? People talk about information overload. I think what we're really suffering from is opportunity overload. Every day, there are so many choices of how to spend your time. And I think we're all kind of like kids in a candy shop, you know? We don't know which way to turn. We want it all at the same time. So here's a caravan of camels crossing the desert. Can you see that? I want you to very quickly count the camels in the top row and tell me how many you see. 8? All right, let's take a closer look. If you really study that, the images that you are looking at are not the camels. They're shadows. You see that? The camels are very tiny, and because of the angle of the photograph, see the shadows. So now why did you look at the shadows first? Bigger, right? What is this like in real life when we are moving really fast? Very often, we pay attention to the thing that is screaming the loudest rather than the thing that is most important. And sometimes, no matter how much is flying at you at the same time, it really pays to just slow down and take a closer look. So my goals for my time with you today are to give you a chance to take a closer look at the way you are spending your time. I'm going to give you the opportunity to develop a completely new way of looking at time. And I'm going to give you 7 tools to get yourself back in balance every time you get thrown off track. The first tool is a self-assessment. If you're struggling with your time, you've got to go from the general, which is my whole life is out of control, I'm completely overwhelmed, I'm sleep deprived, to the specific, which is in what way? And you know what? It's different for everybody. We may all be overwhelmed, but in different ways. We all want things that we're not getting to, but we want different things. So you've got to get specific, take an honest look every time you feel out of control and ask some questions. For example, Question number 1. I spend way too much time on what?
Extracurricular activities.
Too much time. She's not working hard enough. Okay. I wish I had more time for
The extracurricular activity.
We're going to have you two switch seats. Okay. All right, what do you wish you had more time for?
For myself.
For herself. A lot of people are missing that. Okay. How about this one? I procrastinate whenever I have to
take care of things I don't want to do.
Don't want to do it. How about you? What do you procrastinate on?
Taking a vacation.
Taking a vacation, right? As soon as I get to the bottom of this to-do list, get a little more work done, then I'm going to take a vacation. You know, everywhere I go, I hear the same kinds of answers. No time for myself, no time for exercise, hard to say no to those sorts of things, not enough time for me, quality time with my family, right? You know what it all boils down to? We all want a 25th hour. We want it. We want it. But the real question is, if we had a 25th hour, what would we spend it on? Let's see how some other folks answered that question. If I had a 25th hour, I'd spend it on...
The computer.
Sleeping.
Oh, scratch the computer. Sleeping. Yeah. Hanging out with my boyfriend.
Family.
Sleep.
Exercise.
I'd spend it relaxing.
Reading a book.
Sleep.
Playing sports.
Television. Watching television. Sports Center.
On fixing up what I have to do today so I don't have to do it tomorrow.
You heard it, right? Could everybody relate? Okay, I'm going to find you the 25th hour, and I'm going to find it right here in this messy closet. Most people have an easier time organizing space than time. You can see things, you can hold them in your hands, you can take out a measuring tape. Is this going to fit? It's not going to fit. Neaten up the stacks. Stick them under the rug, right? You can see it, but time is invisible. In my experience, the single biggest obstacle for people as they try to manage their time lies in their perception of it. It kind of slips through your fingers. I mean, how long is a day? It depends how much sleep you got, right? And how long is an hour? It depends what you're doing. Time is relative, but as long as time remains relative and ephemeral, you will never be able to get control over it. And in my own journey of learning to get organized, and those of you who know me know I was not always an organized person, disorganized enough to lose a car once, and my big breakthrough came the day I realized organizing time is exactly like organizing space. Exactly the same. Think about it. Let us compare that cluttered closet to a cluttered day. Both of them are a limited amount of space that are jammed with way more things than you can possibly fit. And in each case, items are shoved in no particular order, right? Any available pocket of space, one boot up here, one down here, right? Tasks. You know, you're in the middle of doing something, somebody asks you for something, oh, better just shove it right in, because if I don't do it now, when else am I going to do it? And that haphazard arrangement in your closet makes it impossible for you to see what you've got. That haphazard arrangement in your schedule makes it impossible for you to see what you've got to do or the balance of your day between the various departments of your life. So if a disorganized closet and a disorganized day are the same, then the process of organizing them would be the same, right? So let's see, how do you organize a closet? Right, the first thing you do, you pull everything out and you start to group similar items. Put all the long hanging stuff at one end and the short hanging stuff beneath it. And you put the shoes together, and you put the belts and the ties on the door, and you put the bags or the shirts on the top, and everything has a home. And that much more organized grouped arrangement, what does it do? It maximizes the use of your space, stretches your storage, right? Same is true in your day. If you group similar tasks, batch your calls, batch your errands, batch that financial stuff you dread. Once you're cooking on one, it leads into the next and the next and the next, and you waste no time. You get much more out of your day. Newsflash, multitasking doesn't work. Been waiting for somebody to say that, right? Multiple studies have come out that have proven it takes the brain, listen to this statistic, 4 times longer to process each thing it's working on when it's switching back and forth between tasks. That means a 15-minute task done fully focused takes 15 minutes. That same task done in between 6 other things, the one task takes an hour. If you are working 10 or 12-hour work days, and you're a multitasker, I would almost guarantee you that if you break the habit of multitasking, you could cut your workday by 2 hours and get more done than you currently do and get your life back. The other big discovery, when you realize that time is simply a container, is that just like the items that you have to put into your closet take up a certain amount of room, the tasks that you put into your day take up a certain amount of space. And I want to ask you to think about your to-do list. How many people have a time estimate next to the tasks on their to-do list? Nobody. Nobody, right? Most people don't do that. What do? When we make our to-do list, we ask one question. What do I need to do? Register the car, mow the lawn, finish that analysis, but nobody ever really asks, how long is it going to take? And the truth is, time management is a mathematical issue. So, tool number two is simply to ask the question, how long will it take? For every item you put on your to-do list, how long is that going to take? Now, when someone walks in and asks to talk to you, ask them, how long will it take? And don't buy it when they say, 2 minutes. I just need 2 minutes. It's never just 2 minutes. And the truth is, we tend to miscalculate, right? If we really looked at it, we're big on miscalculation, right? I mean, you think that, how long you think it takes you to do the dishes, right? 2 hours. It's actually, an hour and 50 minutes procrastinating, 10 minutes to do the dishes, okay? But, there's a lot of denial that takes place. We think something, we'd like it to take less time than it does. There's wishful thinking involved, right? We went out on the street and we asked some people how long it took them to do some basic, everyday tasks, the things that drag us down. Let's see what they had to say. How long does it take you to pay the bills?
Half hour.
Couple hours.
5 minutes.
How long does it take you to pack for a trip?
Probably 4 hours.
It's 15 minutes flat.
About an hour, 2 hours.
How long does it take you to clean your house?
That's a procrastination, I guess. 2 hours.
3 or 4 hours.
Probably a day.
How long does it take you to get out the door in the morning?
2 hours. I take a lot of time dressing up.
Half an hour.
20 minutes.
10 minutes.
My hair's longer than hers.
How much of your day do you spend checking email?
5 minutes.
40 minutes to 1 hour.
2 to 3 hours a day.
Probably about 4 hours.
Okay, the real key to time management from the inside out is knowing how long it takes you, because it's really different for everybody. There are no shoulds. It really varies from person to person. And you have to study yourself and really figure out how long it takes you, the unique individual, to do each of those tasks and accept it. Because denial does not change reality. So you can say it's only going to take me a half an hour, but if it takes you 3, reality's going to kick in. So you've got to improve your time estimating skills. It is what I call the #1 gateway skill to good time management. You master this, and every other time management skill that you struggle with will fall right into place. Guaranteed. So how do you do it? I want you to think about 3 tasks you're actually kind of curious about now that we've been talking about this. How long does it really take me to do it? And over the next couple weeks, time each of them 3 times, and you will get the average, and you will know how long that task takes. Okay? And as you're doing your sort of estimate, you got to think about the hidden time costs, right? The things we tend to forget about. If you have something difficult to do, you need to build in some thinking time. If it's complicated, build in time for some surprises. You need setup time if you're doing a project. You need cleanup time, otherwise what do you end up with? Half-finished things all around you, right? And you need to factor in travel time. Realistically, travel time is not the 10 minutes on the highway it takes to get from here to there. It's the 6 minutes to go find your car and warm it up, find a parking spot, wait for the elevator to come, right? So you got to be realistic. Now, once you start looking at how long things take, guess what you're going to find out? You got too much to do and not enough time. Tool number 3. When you have more tasks than time, before you get stuck in the middle of your day in an emergency situation, you're going to apply the 4 Ds. First D is delete. Just delete it. You know what? Not going to get done, not enough time, and you know what? In the grand scheme of things, it's just not that important. And if you have things that have been sitting on your desk or your kitchen counter for the last 4 months, it's time to delete them. Because you've been deleting them anyway. But if you send them into the shredder, you actually take the weight off your shoulders. Why have that around your neck? Just, it's not going to get done. Let it go. It doesn't matter. Second thing you can do is delay some things, right? And delaying does not mean procrastination. It doesn't. Procrastination is just sort of aimlessly kind of not doing this right now, and we'll see when it gets done. Delaying means rescheduling something for a more appropriate time. I'd love to go out to dinner with you, but I have this deadline. Can we delay it till Friday night? Third thing you can do, diminish, which means don't do the big fancy version, right? Do the down and dirty version. Do a quicker way, a shortcut. Now, this is going to upset the perfectionists in us that rewrites our emails 6 times to make sure they're perfect to our kid or our spouse. Some amount of perfectionism can be a very valuable skill in life, very valuable. But you only want to apply that perfectionism to about 20% of what you do. The 20% where it really counts, and it's what I call applying selective perfectionism, okay? And for everything else, you can do the down and dirty version, the good enough version. Now think about shortcuts, right? I mean, shortcuts for anything you do routinely is worth putting some thought in. How can I do this faster? Food shopping. Make a master shopping list, right? Put it on the computer and organize it exactly the way your supermarket or your stores are organized. And you post it on the fridge and you check things off, and everybody checks things off as you run out of them. You grab that list, you go to the market, and you zip through, and you're out in record time. Cleaning. Try team cleaning your house with the other people you live with your spouse, with your kids, with your family. But when you team clean, stick as a team in one room at a time. Everybody gets a different job. One gets the mop, one gets the rag, one gets the duster, right? Circle the room and do it, each room in 3 or 4 minutes. Put on some great music. You have quality time. You get it done in a fraction of the time. Getting out the door in the morning, especially if you're not a morning person, I highly recommend you make all your decisions the night before. What am I going to wear? Where is my briefcase, right? And just as a backup, post a little, what are the things you always forget, you know, when you're halfway down the street? Create a little do not forget checklist and post it on the door right before you walk out. Do I have my wallet, my keys, my cell phone, my charger, right? My significant other. And then you can go. The 4th D is delegate. Delegation is psychologically the most difficult. You know, it's really hard to let go of that control, right? okay? But I'm telling you, if somebody can do anything on your to-do list faster than you, better than you, or good enough, let them have it, okay? The truth is, time management is not about to-do lists. It's not. It's about the big picture, right? And when we come back, we are going to rise above the details, and I'm going to teach you how to connect those daily tasks to your big picture goals. Okay, so we've taken some big first steps to get control over our schedules, right? We have a first tool is a self-assessment, what's really going on here. Second tool is realizing how important it is to estimate how long tasks take. And the third tool is the handy-dandy 4 Ds. But time management is really not about the to-do list. It's about your life, right? So to truly manage your time well, you have to rise above those daily details and develop perspective. So tool number 4 is what I call developing a big picture view. Okay? And there are 3 steps to developing your big picture view. The very first one is to simplify your life categories. The second is to define your big picture goals. And the third is to select activities. Okay, 3 steps. Let's take them one at a time. Simplify your life categories. And when you think back to that closet, one of the keys to organizing any space is to not over-categorize. If you have, one section for short sleeve shirts that are solid, one short sleeve shirts that have a pattern, long sleeve shirts over here, right? By the time, you don't know where anything goes, and that's why it ends up on that chair by your bed. Well, the same is true of your time and your life. If you are trying to juggle your time between 14 or 15 or 16 or 18 different life categories, you can't. It's too much to keep track of. 3 to 5 is what I call the magic rule. No space should be organized or subcategorized into more than 3 to 5 categories. And I say the same is true of your life. What are you really trying to juggle your time between? Simplify it, 5 or 6 categories, okay? I'm trying to juggle my time between work, family, self, maybe community, right? Knowledge, spirituality. We're all going to divide it a little differently. Some people might, I'm trying to organize myself between sort of my creative time, my right brain time, my left brain time. But keep your categories simple because it's so much easier to keep yourself in balance, right? Between a few categories. Everything should be able to be funneled into one of those 5 categories. Once you know what your life categories are, okay, this is my balance, you have to define goals for each category, right? Like when it comes to work, an example of a big picture goal is, when it all comes down to it, I want to develop a reputation for excellence. And 100% of what I do at work heads me toward that goal, okay? For myself, category of self, an example of a big picture goal is I want to maximize my health. And everything I do is going to lead me toward that destination. Finances, if that's a life category, big picture goal might be build large retirement fund. Somebody else might not want that. Somebody else might want to make a fortune, spend it all, and die happy and broke, right? So we all have different big picture goals, but those big picture goals are our values. It's the destination, right? They don't change that much over the course of your life. It's what really counts. And you know what? Sometimes people get hung up on this because they question, do I really deserve that? Am I able to get myself there? Do I have what it takes to achieve that? And let me tell you something. If you think you don't know what your goals are, you do. We all know in our gut what we really want. And in all my experience and all my years as a time management expert, I know that once people just have the courage to just write it, because it's there anyway, the minute your goals are clear, your vision gets clear, and it all starts to happen. Write it down. Be courageous. Dream big, because you know what? You're dreaming big anyway. And once you know what your goals are, easy, right? Simple, one sentence. Now you have to select the activities. How are you going to get to that goal? That's where we have opportunity overload. So many choices. If your goal is to maximize your health, how many ways are there to do that? I mean, we've got yoga, we have Pilates, meditation, eating well, getting to the doctor, sleeping a little bit more, right? So many different ways in any life category. So your activities can change. They can change every month, they could change every year. When we talk about New Year's resolutions, we say, oh, my goal this year is to exercise more. That is not a goal. Exercise is an activity. The goal is better health. The activity is going to the gym. If we have 5 life categories and you have 3 activities per year for each of those categories, how many activities is that in a week? Pull out your calculators. 15. Okay, that is 15 things. The activities are objects you have to fit into your week. They take space. Limit the activities. If you need to change them every few months, do it. I want to tell you about the art of selectivity. Very dear friend of mine, Gordon, is probably the truly most brilliant time manager I've ever met in my life. And one of this man's categories is knowledge. He wants to know stuff. But instead of trying to learn everything all at the same time, he chooses one topic per year. So one year it was the history of jazz music. Another year it was the aerospace program. Another year the presidents of the United States. And for the entire year, whatever his topic is, whenever he finds himself in a bookstore or leafing through a magazine or checking out PBS, right? He gravitates toward the section related to his topic for the year. Doesn't that sound delightful? Easier, focus. You can do so much in your life, but you can't do it all at the same time. So select your activities, 1, 2, or 3 per life goal, and then we've got to find space for them in your week, right? Now, how are we going to do that? Tool number 5. We're going to create a time map. A time map. Now, what's a time map? A time map is a structure to your day or your week that guarantees time for all of the core activities that you have decided are essential to you. It ensures the balance that you want in your life. Okay? And it makes daily decision-making so much easier because you have time set aside for each of the core activities. You can truly focus on the moment. This is my work time. I am focused on work. Family time is later. When you are with your family, you've taken care of work. You can be in the moment. And you're not constantly distracted with, I am here, but I need to find time for that. Why have I neglected that? And so on. So first, take a look at this sort of just blank schedule for a week. And I would challenge you to try filling something like this out for a week. A little tedious, but write down the time you wake up, the time you go to sleep. That is your container. And write down how your days go and everything that gets in there. You may be surprised that you will discover hidden pockets of time you didn't even realize you had. You may also realize that you are doing things in such a chaotic fashion you can't even capture it on paper. Can't account for the last 6 hours, but I was busy. Let me show you how this time mapping really works. I worked with a woman who was married. She was a working mom. She was vice president of a bank. She had 2 children and a husband. And she had her work life worked for her. You know, when she was at the bank, everything worked like clockwork. She had staff. She delegated well. Everything was fantastic. But her time at home was completely out of control She felt like she was drowning in chores and errands. She had absolutely no quality time with her kids, and she had no quality time with her husband. She called me in for help. I said, okay, let's look into the closet of your week. And I said, tell me how it flows. Tell me what happens. So this is what, she woke up at 4:30 in the morning every day. We only ask questions. We do not judge. It wasn't me getting up at 4:30 in the morning. And she spent 2 hours by herself, drinking coffee, reading the paper, and she was a marathon runner. This was a woman who took time for herself. She'd go for a run, she'd take a shower, she'd get dressed, and then she would wake up her kids. And for the next hour, she would dress her kids, run downstairs, cook breakfast, serve breakfast, clean up breakfast, grab the backpacks, grab the kids. They'd race out the door. She'd drop them off at school. Workday went just fine. She'd pick them up, come home, walk through the door at 6 o'clock. She immediately began cooking. She'd wash the floor. She'd pick up the clutter from the morning that hadn't been taken care of, serve dinner. While the kids did their homework, she would clean up. And at the end of the day, she would do laundry or iron her clothes for the next day and go to sleep and collapse. Now, what's wrong with this picture? You know what the first question I asked her was? Why do you wash the floor every night? And she looked at me so stunned and said, well, that's what my mother always did. And I went, oh, did your mom work? And with that same look of surprise, she went, no. This was the vice president of a bank who, without realizing it, was also playing the role of a 1950s full-time stay-at-home mom. The other question that becomes very obvious when you look at this is like, where is her husband? And you know what? He wanted to help. He tried to help. She didn't like the way he put things away. He always put the glasses in the wrong cabinet and the silverware went in the wrong place, right? And, you know, he never picked out the right clothes for the kids. But she was still playing this role, the role of the mom who takes care of everybody, right? She was so set up to have to do it all herself that all of the kids' snacks were on a high shelf that they had to go to her and ask her for something and she'd have to get it. Totally not conscious. So first thing we did was I told her, you don't have to wash the floor every night. And then we reorganized the closet of her week. Now, if you look, we're looking at the balance, the categories. Pink is family time, okay? The yellow was self-time, work was blue, and marriage time was purple. Because what was she missing? Family time and marriage time, right? So we reorganized. First of all, I took a half an hour away from her in the morning. Because the only reason she was taking those 2 hours is she was dreading waking those kids up, because once she did, the weight of getting them ready was all on her own shoulders. So we gave her an hour and a half for her marathon run, coffee, and newspaper. She woke up the kids got themselves dressed, her husband made breakfast, she was showering, they all sat down and ate, and had an hour and a half, which was really what it took to get out the door. She went to work, it went fine. When she came home, they cooked as a family. The kids helped wash the salad ingredients. They ate, and then while the kids did homework, her husband and her did the dishes. They got the kids in bed by 9 o'clock, and for an hour every night, we staked a claim on marriage time. And even if all they did was sit side by side reading the newspaper, not even talking, they both knew they had that time together every day and could start to really rebuild that connection. And we also reinstituted date night, right? Because you forget when you're married, you know? You get all involved in all the chores, but if you don't nurture these relationships, they start to crumble, right? You get a little detached. So we had marriage time, and even on the weekends and family time, we organized it so there was a balance between the mornings on Saturday were errands and chores. Finished, the afternoon was family fun time. They always had it. It motivated them to get the house clean so they could go out and go rollerblading or go to a movie. And Sundays were also outings time, and the kids could each rotate who's picking what we're doing this Sunday, routines that people can count on. And Sunday nights became designated as family project night. All those things that come up, it's like, gee, I better hem those pants, sew that button back on, fix the leaky faucet, organize the photo albums, those projects that basically hang over your head for about 8 months, right? It's because there's no time in your schedule for them. Stake a time to do it, and then you don't have to think about it anymore. On Tuesday, you need to sew a button on, you're like, oh, that's a Sunday night activity, and I can stay focused. Do you see the power of this tool? There are people who will like buck and say, you know what, I don't want my life to be that restricted, that constricted, it feels confining. It is not. Because this is your balance, not mine, not hers, not his. And once you compartmentalize, you're motivated because you can't wait to get to the next section. Now, there are some people whose lives won't work this way. Every day is a little different. They may be freelancers. They work at home. They're an artist. They're part-timers. They're retired. They don't have the confines of work, and they can't break their day up into every day. For 2 hours, I do this, and 3 hours, I do that. But a time map is a flexible tool, right? So instead of that horizontal organization, you can do what I call a vertical time map. And each day of your week could be devoted, the theme of the day is a particular department of your life. Mondays, me day, right? Tuesdays, paperwork day. Wednesdays, marketing day. I worked with an artist who was struggling because he liked to hyper-focus and just concentrate on one thing at a time. He needed time in the art gallery. He needed time in the park drawing and getting ideas. He needed some time to catch up with his personal life because when he was working, it was 14-hour days. He loved them, but he didn't have time for his chores, and then he needed time off. And that's the way we organize it. Monday and Tuesday, gallery time. Wednesdays were personal errands. Thursdays and Fridays in the park, weekends off. Vertical time map. It's a very flexible tool. Now, I'm not saying that a time map works 100% of the time. Works 80% of the time, right? But it's your starting point, and it's your landing point. And when life throws you a curveball, sure, you throw the whole time map up in the air, you deal with the crisis or the opportunity, but immediately you come back to it. If you don't have this at a starting point, everything that flies at you, you don't know when to do it. With a time map, you funnel it right in. It's a great tool. I want you to try it. Puts you back in control of your life. But we all know life happens. What do you do with the inevitable interruptions, distractions, and even your own bad habits that are destined to throw you off track every single day? When we come back, I'm going to show you how. So we've defined our goals, right? We picked the activities that we want to get us there, and we have created that wonderful tool, the time map. That's the balance we really want to keep. So now life happens. What do you do with reality when reality strikes, right? How do you make decisions about the 1,000,001 things and choices that you have to make every single day? Remember that messy closet? If we were going to organize that closet, we would apply what I call the SPACE formula. S-P-A-C-E. The S is for sort. We'd pull everything out and we would group similar items. The second thing we would do is P for purge, okay? That's where we get rid of all of the duplicates and triplicates and irrelevant and the stuff we really don't want anymore. We're now reduced just to what we're going to keep, and the A is for assign. Assign a home for each of the categories that we're keeping. This goes in the left side of the closet, this goes in the right side of the closet. We'll put that on the door, this on the shelf. Everything gets a home. The C stands for containerize. And we put things into containers so that we can keep our categories separate, right? And keep it very easy to maintain that order. And the E is for equalize. take a few minutes every day to put everything back where it belongs, and maybe once or twice a year, look at the system and tune it up a little so that it changes with our changing needs, tastes, and priorities. That's what we do for a closet. I told you space and time are the same, so now I'm going to give you tool number 6. When things are flying at you, you have to sort through the clutter of too much to do. Apply the space formula to your tasks. The first thing you have to do is sort them, right? Which category does this belong in? Is this work, family, self, community? And how long will it take? Now you've got them all separated. Purge as many as you can. It's the most difficult step because it means letting go, right? Letting go, saying no, releasing some things from your ambition, your to-do list, right? So what makes it so hard to say no? Let's talk about that. What do you think makes it so hard to say no?
I think you want to please.
You want to please
others.
people.
Yes.
You want to please others. Feels good, right? Don't want to get them mad at you, right? Okay, why do you think it's hard to say no?
Because so often people appreciate when you do things for them.
They appreciate it, right? You love the smile on somebody's face when you say yes, right? Why is it hard for you to say no?
Personal satisfaction, just getting the job done.
So you like to get it done. You are driven by results. I want to conquer this, right? And get it done, right? So what we're really saying is it's not only hard to say no to other people, it's just as hard to say no to ourselves. But you must recognize your right to say no in order to keep your life in balance so that work doesn't suddenly take over at the expense of everything else, or time off takes over at the expense of your career. Think about the tasks that you wish you could say no to, but yes keeps falling out of your mouth. Right? Like, how about being on a committee? That's a hard one to say no to, right? You want to please everybody? Really hard. You got to practice exit lines for the trickiest situations. I would love to help out. I am so devoted to this organization, you know that. But my plate is so full, I really couldn't do the committee justice this year. Can we rediscuss it next year? You have hurt no feelings, you've done them a favor, and freed yourself up. Somebody invites you to a party. You know what? You had a hard week. You really don't feel like being social, right? How do you get out of that one gracefully, right? Practice your exit strategy. You know, thank you so much for thinking of me. I would love to attend, but I have a prior commitment. Even if that prior commitment is to be in your jammies reading a novel for the whole weekend. You have an appointment with you, and you don't have to explain what the prior commitment is. Trickiest one to say no to, often the boss. You know, bosses have this terrible habit of piling the work on. Can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? Oh, and this too? And you get to a point, it's like, you have to say no. But how do you say no to the boss? You don't say no. Present your boss with the options and have them help you decide. Because I would tell you, your boss is as busy as you are and is not keeping track of the tasks that they are throwing over their shoulder, hoping you keep saying yes. And all you have to do is say, you know what, we have the same goals, we want to serve the customers, we want to make a fortune here, we want to keep our profits high. I've got this due by 5, this due by 5, and we clearly need this done by 5 too. Can you help me prioritize which is most important? Or can we get some extra help so they all get done at 5? Which leads us to delegation. Another part of purging. Right now, we talked earlier about how difficult it is to delegate. Okay, you're on. Why is it so hard to delegate?
Well, somehow I feel guilty.
You feel guilty?
I am responsible to do these things, and so I shouldn't put it on to other people, and then being a people pleaser, they might not like it.
Okay, so there's a sense of you don't want to burden other people?
Right.
Or stop pleasing them, right? You are going to take care of it all.
And after all, these are things I'm able to do, and I feel like because I have the ability to do it, I should do it.
Okay. All right. How about you?
They may not do it as well as I would.
You know, no one can do this as well as I can. And you know what? If I have somebody else do it and they're not going to do it well, I have to do it again, all over again anyway. What time have I saved, right? Can't do it as well. And sometimes people feel that by the time I explain this to somebody, I could have just done it myself, right? Okay, so here's what I want to tell you. Number one, you have to change your belief system about delegation. Delegation is not burdening other people. How many people here have already acknowledged how good it feels when someone asks us to do something for them and we do it and we get that appreciation? It feels awesome. Why are you hogging that feeling all for yourself? You're not letting anybody else feel good. It feels good to help. Share the love. Share the good feeling. Delegation done properly promotes what I call a very healthy interdependence between people in a family and in the workplace. If there's anything on your to-do list that somebody else can do faster than you, better than you, or good enough, let them do it. And free your schedule for where you really want to spend your time. Okay, now, we're up to the A. Assign a home. You know what you're going to do. When are you going to do it? I am not a believer in master to-do lists. I don't believe in them. Master to-do lists go on for 14 pages. You never look at them again. It's just so intimidating and overwhelming, right? It's like a big miscellaneous inbox. And here's the key. A to-do that is not connected to a when never gets done. So for every to-do, do you not only ask how long it takes, but when am I going to do this? And I want you to turn to that page in your planner. I'm doing this on Thursday, and you write it down on the day you intend to do it. Now what happens? You start to see your day physically, visibly, tangibly filling up. And if you try to put something else in on Thursday and you're already at full, you realize in advance, before you get stuck by surprise, it's not going to fit. So you start to make those choices. And when you plan your days realistically, something magical happens. You bounce out of bed in the morning excited to tackle that day because it's doable. And you go to sleep at night feeling such a sense of accomplishment because you actually checked everything off your to-do list. But what that really means is that you need a single, consistent planner. One tool to record all of your to-dos, tasks, and appointments. Just one. So tool number 7 is to choose just one planner. Not easy, because look at the options. There are so many choices. And I tell you something, juggling multiple systems doesn't work. How many people here have a paper planner, a wall calendar, an electronic portable device, and about 16 different notepads trying to keep track of it all? Can you hold that for me? All right, so how do you know what to choose? Here's a wonderful, cool, big planner. It's briefcase. You can write, lots of room to write things, carry it. Pretty cool, right? Can you hold that for me? All right, then you've got, of course, something like this, which zips up, which means you can stuff all your unpaid bills and receipts in there, waiting to take care of them. You've got, you know, these spiral-bound ones that might sit on your desk, much slimmer profile. Maybe that's what you need. Of course, there's also software you can put on your computer to organize all of your tasks. I think you should hold that, and you should hold that. What else have we got here? Nice small pocket calendars, and of course, how handy is that? Everybody wants just that in their bag, right? Tiny, little, wonderful. How do you know which one is right for you? How do you know? Because you can only choose one. So here's the decision that you have to make. Are you a paper person or an electronic person? Okay? And how do you know? That's your first decision. First, are you a visual tactile person or what I call a linear digital person? Visual tactile people think more clearly writing pen to paper. You are a visual tactile person if you can remember, oh, that phone number is 3 pages back in the upper right corner in green ink. If that's you, don't try to get an electronic planner. It will not work for you. It will not keep up with the speed of your thinking. It will not capture your thoughts the way you want to group them. Okay? Visual tactile people need paper. Linear digital people, very chronologic, numeric thinkers. I can call out a date, April 19th, and they're like, oh, that's a Wednesday this year. It's 2 days after my Aunt Sophie's 80th birthday and 3 days before a dinner date we have with a friend. They can look at one screen and understand what is not on the screen and put it in context. Those people can use electronic. And once you know whether you're paper or electronic, you just need to know, is it portable or is it stationary? So if you're always in the same place, you can have a big desk calendar, right? Or a computer software. If you are always on the road, you need your planner with you, more portable paper or a handheld. We're up to C, containerize, starting and stopping when you plan to. So if you say, I'm going to the gym from 9 to 10 on Saturday morning, you gotta leave on time. And you have to not get there and trick yourself and then stay for 4 hours. Because then your trust level in yourself goes right down and your time map ends up in the shredder. You can't even trust yourself, right? Okay, containerization keeps you in balance. So how do you do it? There are 3 enemies to containerization. Let's tackle them one at a time. First is procrastination. Okay, procrastination is the biggest energy drain. When you're procrastinating, you're not even doing anything useful, right? You are rearranging the toothpicks inside the junk drawer. The way out of procrastination is to stop looking at the task and focus on the payoff. The payoff. If you have not submitted your expenses for 3 months, you got to stop looking at all those receipts, okay? And focus on that reimbursement check. That is what you're working for, and plan what you're going to spend it on. Second thing is, if you're procrastinating because the task is too big, right? We're trying to do it all at once. It's too hard to get started. Break it down into smaller steps and just do the first step. Clean the fridge, not the whole kitchen. Enemy number 2 to containerization is chronic lateness. All right, and you know what? This is a very emotionally charged issue, right? Whether you are the guilty party or the person left waiting, lateness puts a real strain on a relationship, right? A lot of time is wasted, and people really think that lateness is mostly a matter of rudeness, and it's not my experience. How do you solve the lateness issue? You have to diagnose what is causing it. And there's 2 causes. Could be technical, could be psychological. How do you know the difference? If you are always late by a different amount of time, sometimes you're 5 minutes late, sometimes you're 40 minutes late, it's probably technical, which is you're terrible at estimating how long tasks take. You're always off by a different amount of time. We know the solution to that, right? Gave you that homework already. If you are always late by the exact same amount of time, always 10 minutes late, always, guess what? You are right on time. You are arriving precisely when you want to. This is not technical, this is psychological. So you have to ask, why do I want to be 10 minutes late always? And my experience is, people who are chronically late by the same amount of time have a kind of fear of downtime. They must be busy all the time. And any time spent waiting is anxiety-provoking. So if they get there on time and they're waiting for 10 minutes, oh my God, I have nothing to do, I'm not being productive, okay? So instead of trying to change that about yourself, work with it. And the solution is absolutely arrive 10 minutes early and have something compelling and critical to do in those 10 minutes. Rush and get there and total those expenses so that you can get your refund check, okay? Or carry little note paper and stamps, and the people that you've been losing touch with, write a note to a friend in every 10-minute waiting period, stamp it and mail it on your way out of that appointment. Okay? And that's how you solve that problem. You must avoid, to avoid lateness, the just one more task syndrome. I'm leaving, but let me just do this one more thing. Okay? Interruptions will also really hurt you, right? If you're trying to containerize, you're starting and stopping, you get interruptions. That's the third enemy to containerization. What do? Filter them. Just filter them. Just because someone is interrupting you right now doesn't mean it's actually urgent and has to be handled in this moment. And do you know, studies have shown that a call that, if you're in the middle of something, you take a call and someone asks you for something and you respond immediately, that call takes an average of 11 minutes. If they left you a message, you heard it and knew what the topic was, and you initiated the call, that call takes you 7 minutes. Finally, we're going to equalize. The E is to equalize. Every day, 10 sacred moments reviewing how your day went. Did I achieve the balance that I want? What do I need to carry over? And every couple, 3 months, reevaluate that time map. Now, we've talked about a lot of different tools today, right? 7, to be exact. And don't expect to integrate them all perfectly right now. Pick 1 or pick 2 and try it, and watch your relationship to time start to improve. And as you're applying these skills, remember, if you fall off track, if you end up late, if you try to take on too much one day and don't check everything off, forgive your failures and celebrate your successes, right? If you are able to carve out a Sunday to spend with your friends instead of carting work home, enjoy it. Celebrate that victory. If you get everything done on your to-do list, don't rush off to bed. Whoop it up. Right? It's wonderful. The most liberating thing about time management from the inside out is that it helps you create a life that nurtures you. It makes you feel good. You are the owner of your life. You cannot control the events that are thrown at you, but you can control your reactions. And using these 7 tools, keep bringing yourself back to balance to create the life you want for yourself. I thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I wish you a wonderful, joyous, rewarding life. Okay, the one thing you will hear me saying over and over again is that managing your time is all about your individual needs and preferences. So everybody has their own unique time management challenges and their own questions. So right now we're going to try to answer some of those. What are your questions?
You said you're not a fan of general to-do lists, and I happened to look at mine yesterday, which I don't look at it very often because it has 135 things on it.
Right.
What do I do now that I've learned what you've had to say?
I would recommend that you go find a planner. You have to pick whether you're going to be on a paper planner or a digital planner, and you got 2 choices. You can start from this day forward, which is my recommendation. I don't like going backwards. I think going back through 130 things that might have been sitting there for the last 7 months is only going to make you feel bad and intimidated. What did I forget? What did I overlook? Why haven't I done that yet? Start from today forward, because I'm sure there's 100 things more you have to do. So get that planner. I would recommend starting out maybe, if you're going to go paper, with 1 whole page per day. This is one of the things that we really didn't talk about too much, which is, do you want, if you're, are you a paper guy?
Yes.
Okay. So you could have a week on 2 pages. That gives you about this much room to write your to-dos for every day. If you only have 3 or 4 to-dos on any given day, that size will work for you. Okay? If you have 10 or 12 to-dos every day, you need a whole page for each day. If you have more than that to keep track of, not only your own 10 to 12 to-dos, but other people's to-dos, you're managing a staff, you're trying to keep track of your kids or your spouse or whatever, you might need 2 pages per day. Buy the right planner and start from this day forward for every to-do. How long is this going to take? When am I going to do it? Turn to the page and write it down. And in 3 to 6 months, go back to your master to-do list and see if there's anything worth funneling into your new system.
Thanks.
Sure. Yes.
Hi. When you were talking about when you have more tasks than time, and you said to diminish your tasks and make shortcuts, but what suggestions do you have for perfectionists? You said something about 20% selective perfectionism?
Yes. I think perfectionism, perfectionism is a very tricky little line to walk. On one hand, if you're a perfectionist and you apply it in a very focused way, it can lead you in the pack in your career, right? If you're planning a party, it's going to be fabulous. You're going to look really good like that 2-hour woman, right? It took 2 hours to get out. All right? But at what cost? Okay? If you are a perfectionist about 100% of the things on your to-do list, guarantee you're only going to get to 20% of them anyway. And my suggestion is pick the 20% most important, and let the rest go. I think you should practice doing one thing imperfectly. Practice it. Think about something that you belabor, that you really think probably you shouldn't, but it's very hard not to. Okay? Like, rewriting. I had a client who would come out of a staff meeting and spend 4 or 5 hours typing up the notes. And nobody ever even read them. Do you know what I mean? But she could not create any document without absolute precision. So I said, give that one to somebody else who is not going to be a perfectionist about it. Just let it go. And those things ended up being 1 page of bullets that were actually a useful tool to people. See what I mean? So practice doing one thing less than perfectly and watch how the world doesn't fall apart. And invest your time in something that's more important to you. Question?
I wonder if you could say something more about procrastination.
Mm-hmm.
When does it work for you? When does it not? And how can you tell the difference?
When does it work for you? That is a good question. I think the only way in which procrastination works for you, which is a very hard concept for me to understand, because I think of delaying as working for you. I am not ready to do this, or this is not the right time to do it. I am going to postpone it for 2 weeks, for 1 month, for 1 year, for 3 hours. That's not procrastination. Procrastination, by definition, is avoiding something that you don't want to do or is intimidating to you. But it's random, it's aimless, it's not productive. I would rather see you release it and move on. Now, one thing you can do is ask yourself, why am I procrastinating about this? Is it because it's too intimidating? I'm trying to do a 10-hour task in a half an hour and I internally know better. So can I break it down and just do 1 step? Am I procrastinating because I actually am dreading what happens after this is done? So, I can think of somebody who, you don't want to really send out the invitations to the party because then you may find out not everybody might say yes. Do you know what I mean? What's on the other side of that task that might be a little scary to you? And if that's what it is, then deal with that fear and say, okay, so what if I'll eat all the potato chips myself, right? Whatever. Okay? So ask yourself, and that's where I think if you feel yourself procrastinating and you can analyze why, you can either fix it or cut yourself a break. I had a client who called me and said, you must organize me. You must organize me. My house is a mess. And I said, why? What's the payoff? What are you trying to do that you can't do because you're disorganized? She was trying to finish a book. She'd been working on this book for 10 years. It was a travel book. She said, I just cannot work in this mess. I went and I looked at her home. It was right out of the pages of like an organizing catalog. It was so perfectly organized. There was no problem. I had 2 suggestions for her. Move your filing cabinet over here and change the light on your desk. And she said, yeah, but I really can't do that. I can't move the filing cabinet here. My husband really wants that over there. And she had all these excuses. And I said, you know what? I don't think you want to finish the book. And I think you should give yourself permission to not. Honor the fear. Don't force yourself past it. Because she wasn't getting it done anyway. So to carry this, I should be doing this for 10 years, you know what? I don't really want to. Okay, release it. And when you give yourself permission to release a task, it will either float down the river and c'est la vie and free you up, or you're like, well, you know what? If I'm willing for it to not be done, then maybe I can give it a shot, and if it's no good, so what? Do you see what I mean? I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. Yes.
Julie, I want you to give me the 8th tool, the discipline, to go through the 7 tools you have given us.
It's a great question. But you know something? My experience is, if you organize your time in this way, if you start out with that big picture, if you define your life categories and you have your goals and your activities selected, you create a time map that is genuinely representative of what is most important to you, you don't need discipline. You cannot wait to start each day. You are so focused because you're living the life you want. And the only thing you may have to discipline yourself away from is getting caught by distractions or getting caught up in other people's priorities or that need to please. That need to please. But if you just give it a shot for a few weeks, you will find that you're actually more available to people because you are so glowing and so satisfied internally that when someone comes and asks you for something, if you can't do it right then, it's fine. You know what? They'll also survive. And when you do give them the answer, it's swift, it's precise, it takes care of the problem. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's not so much a matter of discipline. It's a matter of, this is what I want. Why do you have to discipline yourself to do what you want? You shouldn't have to discipline yourself. It comes very, very naturally. But every day, you should end each day reviewing. What did I do? What are my big picture goals? What is my balance? Because there are so many distractions the minute you wake up that if you're focused, you just keep focusing, getting yourself back centered. This is my life. This is what I want. This is what's important. This is what I'm doing tomorrow, +2. That's another little tip. At the end of the day, look at what's happening tomorrow, but also 2 days beyond that. Because if tomorrow there's a surprise, an unexpected issue that needs to be handled, you'll know, oh, you can't necessarily say, oh, okay, then I'll move this to tomorrow. Like, you kind of have that larger view, and you really recognize the impact of allowing yourself to be thrown off track, because you're not just here. You're, aha. Do you see what I mean? And I think that helps with the discipline because you have perspective.
Hi. I have problems with chronic lateness and procrastination. Those are probably my 2 big evils. I've tried all the different planners. I've tried the electronic. I've had all sizes of the paper ones. And I can't seem to find anything that really works effectively.
Okay. Couple of things. First of all, no planner is going to solve that problem. That is trying to organize from the outside in. Oh, if I just use this tool, I will be on time. If I just use this tool, I'll know this is the limit of my time, or I'll get started sooner. Planner's not going to do it. This is about you really studying when you do get in gear. And there are times when you're effective. You are not always ineffective, or you wouldn't have made it here today. And she looks pretty good, right? All her clothes match, very well put together, okay? So my suggestion to you is study the conditions under which you are most effective, analyze it, and apply those principles to everything else you're doing. So it could be that you're okay if you're, switching things every 10 minutes, okay? So what you need to do is break everything you do down into 10-minute steps. So you're not starting many things, finishing none. But in any 10-minute moment, you can say, okay, what can I finish now? Not what can I start, but what can I complete? It may be that you're better in the morning than at night, You are?
A night person.
You're a night person, then yield to it. Yield to it and stop trying to should yourself into, I should be up at 7 o'clock in the morning and go to the gym, and you spend your whole day feeling guilty that you're not doing it, and you don't get effective till nighttime. Savor your day. You're not getting anything done anyway. Go to the beach. Okay. Do you know what I mean? You have to yield to it. My very first book, I had such a hard time writing this book. First of all, you know, I had tremendous writer's block at that time. That book kind of delivered me from it. But I had a business to run, and I had a child to take care of, and I thought, well, now I have a contract, and I have to write this book. I would wake up every day and start writing. Get nowhere. Got nothing done. Was thinking I should be calling clients, I should be doing this, I should be all day long ineffectively writing. My daughter would come home, and I'd be like, oh, she's home already? I haven't gotten a sentence on the page. This is terrible. We'd have dinner together. I'd be so distracted. And she'd go to bed, and my office at that time was in my home. Right next to my bedroom was the office. And just as I was going to sleep at night, I'd see that office, and I'd go, one more shot. You know, I mean, all is a loss. And I'd walk in, and for the next 3 hours, I'd be cooking. Suddenly, it was 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I got so much done. And I thought, and then I'd have to get up at 6 in the morning again. And I kept trying this. And I was talking to one of my own organizers, and sometimes we need our advice turned around and reflected back to ourselves. And she said, Julie, apply your own principle. Look to when you're doing that task and allow it to be so. You are a night writer. Stop trying to write during the day. You know what? That's what I did. So all day long, I didn't even think about writing because it never would start till 11 o'clock anyway. Do you know what I mean? And suddenly I was productive again, and the end of that story, which is interesting, is once I was writing 11 to 1 or 2 in the morning, the only problem was it was hard to get up at 6, right? But I said, what is it about the nighttime that works for me? Why is this help? Why does this work? And it's because at that time of night, I did not feel that there was anywhere else or anything else I should be doing. And I said, when else is this true? This is also true from like 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. or 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. And having been a night person my whole life, in that one instant, I was able to shift and become a morning person. It was remarkable. So stop fighting it. Yield to it and see why it works, and you may be able to translate it and shift the way you're operating.
How do you force yourself to finish a task? Because I always feel like I could send one more email or make one more call.
Okay, so is it end your day or end your task?
End my task.
End your task. So you start things, but you have a hard time finishing them?
Well, not finishing them, but I always have one more thing I can do before I leave. I can send an email, make one more call, take another call, right. And then you find yourself playing catch-up and running, and you're doing 75 miles an hour trying to make up the lost time.
Right, okay. So you've got that shove one more task in syndrome. Okay. So first thing you need to do is, first of all, she recognizes it. Very good. And that is really the key. You need to recognize the minute you feel like doing one more thing, put the brake on, fight it vigorously, and leave. You have to make it a habit of fighting that. And it's going to make you anxious. Because the real reason that you're doing that is you don't have fabulous plans for when you get home. And that's the truth. You probably are putting much more thought and time into your work day than your time when you get home. Okay? So if you keep shoving in one more task, that's procrastinating leaving because you're not ready to go to the next thing. Make sure you're very clear that the very next thing is compelling, it's what you want to do, and you can't wait to do it. And that will get you to stop and jump into the next bucket. I hope that's helpful.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes?
I do a lot of volunteer work and a lot of social activities in the evening. And typically I get home, around 10 o'clock, and I need about an hour of downtime. And then I find I go to bed too late. So how do I get the amount of sleep that I need but still have the downtime I need?
Wow. So your evenings are full, but then you need an hour to relax, and then you fall asleep, and then you have to get up early. And we've got a container here, right? So my question is, if you're going to put it in at the end of the day, can you remove it? Can you start your day later?
Sometimes.
Can you sleep a little longer?
Sometimes I can, and sometimes
I mean, maybe
I
you
can't.
just, it's just like the shoe closet, right? If I'm going to put, if I need, got to take these shoes out and put these shoes in, you only have so much space. So if you don't want to give up sleep time, and it takes you till 11 p.m. to go to sleep, and you need 8 hours a night, right? How many people actually count when they set their alarm clock, how many hours they're giving themselves, as opposed to what time should I get up? You should count, I want 8 hours sleep. It is 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm setting the clock for 9 a.m. The other thing you can do, I don't think it's very hard to rush the decompression time at the end of the day. So if you're stimulated, it's going to take you an hour to unwind, you can't speed that up. You just can't. So see if you can just count forward and start your day a little bit later. Or leave the party at 9 instead of 10.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Julie.
Hi.
I just, when you were talking about multiple planners, that's me to the T. I thought I had 2, and talking with other people, I have 4. And really, 3 of them are work, and 1 of them's family. So how do I incorporate all 4 of them? Because I like keeping them separate.
You like keeping them separate? See, I don't think that's a good idea. Because you have, it's one life. You have one life. You need one planner. Because it puts everything in perspective. If you have a work planner here, and now you have, what, it's 3 different, one for each role that you play at work?
One's paper, one's computer, and another one's one I take with me to meetings.
Okay, you're spending more time transferring information back and forth between these planners, or whatever one you're looking at, worried about something you may be forgetting, that by just fusing them all into one planner, I am sure you're going to regain a minimum of an hour or 2 of focus time a day. Minimum. And I've seen this happen over and over again. If you put it all in one and you want to keep it distinct, color code it. Color code it. So you can see if blue is for work and yellow is for self and pink is for family, right? And you color code all of your tasks and your appointments, you can see at a glance if your balance is off, right? And then you start to apply the 4 Ds to work, expand the family time and the self time. Do you see what I mean? You have to just pick one. You have to do it. I'll be checking up on you.
That's my first task.
Okay, we have time for just one more question. Okay.
My question, I purchased my handy planner. I have things to do along with the estimated map time maps. And there's a deadline for work, and I slip up and miss the deadline. Well, personally, I tend to be too hard on myself. My question to you is, what can I do, or what steps can be taken to ensure that this doesn't happen again?
Okay, so you're talking about missing deadlines, that they can sneak up on you, you got so many things going on, and you can miss, or maybe miscalculate how long things take.
Instead of beating yourself up like you said not to do.
Yeah, beating yourself up does no good.
Right.
That is, except waste more time.
Exactly.
One of the things that you really want to do is, I would literally use a calculator. When you have a big project and something with a deadline that is in the future, and I would literally mark not just the due date in your calendar, because by the time you read that, it's too late, right? So what are the steps to actually arrive there? So if this is due on July 7th, okay, and today is March 1st, what are the steps? And each one of those steps, you have to decide when you're going to do it. So if you're going to brainstorm the project, and that's going to take you a couple of hours or several hours on the internet to research, when am I going to do that? That's going to happen on March 10th. And you keep going so that you'll see, if you break it down, it's not going to sneak up on you, because all 10 steps to get you there have actually been scheduled into your planner. Do you know what I mean? So large projects are the hardest things. My brother, Steve, is, aside from Gordon, the other genius time manager that I know. And when he was in med school, he had something like, in order to study for his board, something like 600 pages to read over, 5 months or something like that. He timed himself reading a chapter, clocked it, and said, okay, it takes me an hour and a half to read this many pages. He counted the chapters, he backed it all in, and he realized that if he worked 5 days a week, giving himself weekends off, he started on this date, he would hit that deadline and have read every chapter, had time to review, and arrive. So he backed it all in. And it may sound tedious to you, but that is, I mean, how liberating was it that he knew for 4 months, as long as I spend 2 hours a night, I'm going to meet this deadline. So liberating. So that's what I recommend. Back it in and lay in each task as to when you're going to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I have so enjoyed being with you today. Thank you.
إن أعجبك الفيديو لا تنسى الإعجاب والاشتراك في القناة.